So we have Bruce live in the locker room in Tallahassee celebrating on the field with the Florida State. And I don't know why, but like we were able to run the ball so well in the first half, especially to the left side, and then all of a sudden we started to abandon it. And like I said, there is some inconsistency.
How are they going to approach this game? How are they going to beat this Florida State team?
Well, we're going to break you guys.
Okay, that's it. The show's over.
In the story, we're going to break you guys. Look, and I'm joking, but it's true.
Lord, the climb continues, KB. Oh my God!
I am sweating.
Look at my heart. Look.
You know what? Yeah, I have so much to say.
Alrighty, and welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. As always, I am the KB. I almost said the old man. And with me, is there something going on your end there, old man? Got too many devices going on at one time?
No.
But as with me, as always, is the old man back in his home studio.
Doing my electronics.
Yeah, too many electronics sometimes. But well, here we go. What would you like to bring up? What would you like?
I was going to say in my day. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's a lot less. But yeah, we're here after a big win on Saturday, 41-16. Florida State takes down Wake Forest and breaks that 3-game losing streak to the Demon Deacons, which is nice to get off their chest. They'll once again try to break another small streak against Pittsburgh this weekend, but we'll dive into that later in the week. But yeah, we're here to grade the performance, go through a couple of stats that we saw here and there, some little highlights from that game on Saturday. And because we haven't discussed it together, we want to discuss it with you, get your thoughts before we head into the next week here and head on to Pittsburgh. But before we dive into that, we want to thank you for being here. Bring your comments and questions and what you saw on Saturday that maybe some other people aren't discussing. But yeah, before we get into that, is there anything that you want to discuss, old man, college football wise, that you saw this weekend or observed around the country? There were some couple of close games. Oklahoma once again. They've been struggling the last couple of weeks, and finally they took that loss. And the surprising thing there, though, that I think people are a little bit upset about is, well, it took a little bit of dive in the rankings. Now, they're ranked number 10. It will be interesting on Tuesday to see where the College Football Playoff Committee does rank them. Because last week or 2 weeks ago against UCF, they escaped that game 31-29. And then this week, obviously, they lost on the road at Kansas, who's a decent team, is a good team, playing with their backup quarterback. But they pull up the win against Oklahoma, and that looked like it was bound to happen to Oklahoma. They're ranked number 10 now in the AP poll, I believe. But it will be, some have projected Oklahoma still in the top 8 in playoff committee polls. We'll see what the show shows us tomorrow when that committee does give their first rankings out. But what else surprised you? I mean, Florida got dominated by Georgia. What else did you see?
Let me go back to the Oklahoma game. They're done. I mean, they're not going to make it in the top 4. I mean, there have to be a catastrophic failure of the top 4 right now for Oklahoma to have a shot. So they're not even in it. Georgia's still the reigning champion. You got to go through Georgia to take them down. Okay, now they're going to have to face likely Alabama in the SEC championship, and if that game were to be close or an overtime, a 1-point win by Alabama, you could see Georgia hanging around and in the top 4. And it's kind of a scary scenario. And so I watched that game. I also watched my Colorado Buffs. I watched the Colorado Buffs.
Really bad.
They got beat again. They played better. They played somewhat better against a pretty good UCLA team. And but the big thing there is they don't have any guys on either side of the line. Period.
Why?
Okay.
Why though?
Well, I think it's because it's a
first year. Off? Casey Roddick
Yes.
has how many snaps? has
They-
Casey Roddick
it
got
does
at
no.
Florida
Come
State
on, come on.
that he
No,
could have had?
well,
Well, when
this
you
show's
put
not
your-
going to be about Colorado.
You can't-
All I'm saying, all I'm saying
the
is they
line,
don't
but you
have
got rid
any.
of them all.
Listen, listen. There's not. My point is this: his Sanders, the quarterback, was getting crushed. And I know you don't like anything about Colorado. You don't like the
Like your
Sanders,
dad. Your
but
dad
he's
can
a good. He's a pretty damn good quarterback.
quarterback.
He's a pretty good quarterback. But he is getting crushed, and he doesn't say a word. He's a damn
he
good
gonna say?
team player. All I'm saying is this: across this country, there is not enough solid and good offensive linemen around here for everybody to fill their ranks, including Florida State, okay? Because I think our line is average. Now, they've looked better the last couple of weeks, but we're playing basically nobodies, okay? We're playing cream puffs. Now what I want to see is our offensive line stand up in the coming weeks. Pittsburgh's the last tune-up, okay? But, you know, offensive linemen are a premium. They're very hard to judge coming out of high school, and it's very hard. Casey Roddick had some miscues in that game on Saturday for us. You know, there was a couple of plays, a guy ran right by me. It looked like he didn't even see him out of the corner of his eye. It's like those horses that have blinders on. Well, it's not my guy. There he goes. I don't get that. I would say to my offensive lineman, if a guy's a bigger threat, hit that guy. You know, I mean, I think the play their defender blew up this play we had going on. It was a toss sweep. Oh, he came through there untouched. It was unbelievable. Okay, that's what I saw. That's what I saw in terms of other games. Yeah,
we'll discuss the playoffs at the end a little bit because that is obviously happening tomorrow, and we'll get the first preview. Oh, we'll get the first rankings out tomorrow. But the only other thing that's on the landscape of college football, and we kind of discussed it last week, was the Michigan situation because that is probably the biggest story
heating up.
And it continues to heat up, like we said. We thought, you know, it was hot last week. It's hotter this week. The biggest news out of that is that Michigan has retracted their contract extension to Jim Harbaugh,
just in case,
which I think is a big development there. That there is some worry that you know they're guarding themselves, and I think taking that money off the table is a decent sign that there is more fire than smoke here. So yeah, once again, the NCAA, we know the NCAA. We things are going to be slow to come out. This may take 6 weeks, or it may take 6 years to.
It could go into next season.
Exactly. I mean, Michigan likely will be in the top 4 for the next couple of weeks until they play Ohio State. But if they win that game, they're obviously going to probably they'll be in the national championship or in the playoffs. So, and I don't expect this to be wrapped up before then. So it will be a cloud overhanging, but it will be likely determined. Does he just basically say, I'm done with this, I don't want to deal with the NCAA, and he leaves? Or did he say, prove it, and just say, NCAA, you prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So it'll be interesting. Once again, every week it seems a little bit more comes out. But that contract extension being taken off the table, that money being taken off the table, I wonder if that incentivizes him at all to say, well, I'm done with Michigan, because obviously that contract, that's a lot of money to lose off the table. I wonder if that incentivizes him to make a decision faster while all of this plays out. So that's interesting. But let's talk about the Florida State game. Let's talk about what we saw on Saturday at noon in Winston-Salem. So I think a lot of positives from that game. You can't be unhappy with the performance what we saw on Saturday. You win 41. You cover the spread. You win by 24 points, right? You
41-16.
41-16. Yeah. Jordan Travis has a hell of a game. One of his, I think, his highest passing game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, another 55 or another 30 with his legs, and a touchdown with his legs. So 4 overall touchdowns.
508 total yards in the game. That's dominance.
Yes,
that's dominant. I mean, for the team. For the team.
Yeah. I mean, it was a dominant performance offensively. Absolutely. Your defense, once again, shined throughout the day. Gave up one big run by Wake Forest accounted for a quarter of Wake Forest's total offense for the day.
Yeah, that was
Nelson,
the big chunk run, 51 yards.
Yeah, 51 yards, and that accounted for over a quarter, I believe, of Wake Forest's total yards, which is or close to. They had 210 yards.
Yeah, that was disappointing. That run with a minute. No, there was a minute to go in the half. We're up 10-0, and they break this run off. I mean, that was on the what do they call it? The slow mesh RPO, which I'm not impressed by. I don't think Florida State's defense was impressed by it. They did get a lucky run.
Yeah, they got a lucky run. Like you said, they let it happen one time and didn't happen again. So once again, they contained the damage. It happened one time. And after that, it didn't happen again. We talked about that in the previous show. Those were the type of plays you couldn't let happen consistently because that was the only way Wake Forest was going to be able to compete with you.
And I don't think the refs influenced that run. I don't think they missed a holding call, a blindside block.
But I don't think we thought Wake Forest was going to be able to compete past the ball. Mitch Griffiths, I don't know if that's the future of quarterback at Wake Forest, but he was having a rough day in the pocket. Jared Verse, Patrick Payton, they were having a field day. Guys inside were having a field day. They were making his life hell. There was no pocket for him, and he wasn't making great decisions. So and the commentators and I think people wanted to see Santino play more, but that kid wasn't going to be able to do anything against Florida State either. Let's just be honest. It was going to be a rough day, whoever they put back there, just because, one, they lacked the skilled position players to make big plays. Two, that offensive line for them was not going to hold up against the talent that Florida State has. We have total of 5 sacks, I believe, in the game, 10-plus tackles for loss. It was just a dominant defensive performance, and that's something we've consistently seen from this defense for most of the season. This defensive line has shown up. It may not always show up in the sack stats. The sack stats, like I said, don't always tell you the true story, but on Saturday they did. They came, they were able to bring it home, bring the quarterback down, along with bringing pressure on him. And I think your defensive backs played very well, too. I think Fentrell Cypress, I called him out a couple of weeks and said, I think he's a little bit overrated from what we got from him. He's supposed to be one of the top 5, I think, transfers that was coming into Florida State. And I thought a couple of times early in the season he got beat. He looks out of position, But I think in coverage the last couple of weeks, he's been pretty solid. He's been right there to make a play on the ball, and he hasn't given up a big pass. And I think this was a good week. He was draped all over his guy. You know what Bernardo Green does? The guy is blanketing people, and they're not letting receivers. So kudos to Cypress, kudos to Ronaldo. All of them in the defensive backfield played a great job, as well as the linebackers. I don't think you can complain about outside of that one big play, which, it happens. But outside of that, they only gave up 16 points and only 7 in the fourth quarter, which I believe they've only given up now 1 touchdown in the second half since Clemson. I believe that's a stat now, which is
impressive. I agree with you. I think our defense was solid. I think that this is another solid performance. They're starting to peak. Okay, I want to say that, with some caution. They're starting to peak right when they need to as we turn the corner to the most crucial part of the schedule now. So I was not early in the season. I had my skeptical eyeglasses on about our defensive line in particular. I am now starting to get very confident with the rotation of these guys, and I see the young players who have really come on now. Now you can put Farmer in there. You can put Fabian Love in there. He's not a young player, but you got the whole group now.
Malcolm Ray,
Briggs.
Really well.
Briggs. You've got about 6 to 8 guys you can shift in there, and it's really coming together with Verse and Peyton and blah blah blah. The defense now is starting to come together. They've got one more good game here to tune it up against Pittsburgh, which we'll talk about later in the week. But they dominated the defense. Like I said, Wake Forest had 128 yards rushing. 51 came on one play. So that kind of offsets that a little bit. But they totally dominated this Wake Forest offense, and I was impressed. I was impressed from the secondary right down to the interior line. And Fisk, again, he is mauling people in there. He is mauling people. Him and Lovett in there together look like a great tandem now. And they're getting their rest, too. They rotate other guys in, and it's perfect. It's perfect.
I mean, you played 6 defensive tackles this weekend. Once again, you played 6 defensive tackles. You played 6 defensive ends. You're getting, like to your point, a lot of guys and a lot of guys quality reps, and that's what you want. This defense was able to get a lot of secondary guys in, and these reps are going to make a difference when you play deeper in the games. And that's why, too, I think Florida State has thrived deeper in games because that depth comes into play. You have finally, for the first time in 3 to 5 years, you finally have quality depth and depth with some bit of experience that can come in, and there's not a huge drop off in talent or the ability to make a big play. I look at Byron Turner. Look at Byron Turner. He was making plays. I think he had 1 penalty, but his ability to make a play, he was able. There was no drop off. There was no major drop off in him coming in to be able to make plays for Florida State.
I think where we might have a little bit of a drop off is in the linebacker core. If we lose a guy in there, we're staying relatively healthy there. But Graham was in there making some plays as well. Bethune's always in there. Lundy.
Graham got a sack. Well, they didn't credit him, but Graham made a big play in the backfield. But like you said, these reps, but you're right. If we can't afford to lose to Deloach or Bethune, in my opinion.
That could hurt.
We've gotten lucky in that department.
Right.
But it's great that Omar played 22 reps. He had 22 reps this weekend. That's a lot of experience.
Blake Nicholson was in it at the end of the game. He's getting some reps in there.
He got 7 snaps this weekend.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But these guys, listen, when you're playing as a coach, you're not only playing for this year, you're playing for next year too. Yeah. You're always thinking, if a guy's ready, as the assistant coaches know, if a guy's ready, they know if a guy's ready to play or not. If not, you're not going to put him out there to embarrass your team or embarrass him. Okay, so the guys they're putting out there are ready to play, and they're showing up, and they're making plays. And I've been impressed by this defense the last couple of games. They got another tune-up to get it ready for the big push.
And to your point, you've said offensive line. You played, I believe, 12 offensive linemen this weekend, which is great. Once again,
a lot of them were in the end.
But once again, you got to a place where you can get those guys in and get game time reps because it will make a difference. But for guys who got 20 or more snaps, you had 7 guys who got 20 or more snaps this weekend.
Right.
Emmanuel, Scott, Harris, Jones, Byers, Smith, and
Reddick.
You got multiple of these guys. Like you said, you're playing 7 deep on the offensive line, but
we had a lot of tight ends playing in there.
You had more tight ends who played this weekend than receivers.
Right.
I mean, that's the flip side of that. I mean, you had 7 tight ends versus 3 receivers who played this week.
Yeah. It was just an overall great effort. And we're hard on this team. We're hard, but we're going to call it like it is. And I thought they had a really, really good outing, and I expect the same next week. I don't see any letdown in this team. I think Coach Norvell and staff has them focused. It's one game at a time. That's how we approach it. What is the past is the past. Forget the record. Forget all the media. Forget these guys like us sitting here chatting away. Focus on your business. Play your game. And if you do that, you're going to come out well. Now, here's one thing that I didn't like, and that was the penalties. 9 for 115. Now, are the refs out to get us, KB? Are the ACC refs deliberately trying to get us? Are they incompetent? Do they not make calls on anybody else?
Maybe.
I saw that watching games and Twitter the whole weekend, right? I saw everybody complaining about refs when their team was losing or something. I wrote a tweet that says, we complain about ours even when we're winning. I don't know how you feel. I mean, but that 115 yards, Norvell hasn't said much about it. I mean, I saw penalties that looked legit to me. They looked like it was worthy of a flag.
Yeah, I think there's obviously things you can clean up.
Of course.
There's
you can cherry pick certain ones.
Yeah. And the thing is, right now it's not hurting you. It is sometimes getting you in some second and long, first and long situations. It's making it harder sometimes on your offense to make those plays, or it's bailing out the other team and sustaining their drives. But this weekend, it didn't hurt you. Obviously, I feel like we've had multiple 100-yard penalty yard games, and that is definitely something that has to be cleaned up. Now, some of these plays you could say they could go either way, and some refs may call them, some refs may not. But once again, it's not changing the outcome of the game ultimately, right? So I'm not going to focus on it now. Once again, these calls can go either way, and it's some of these calls are just like, I don't know, they feel like human nature calls at some point. And I'm not a referee, so I'm not going to. I don't feel like the decision. I'm not going to focus on it, right?
I'm not either, but I am focused on the number. I'm sure the coaches, they break it down and they look at it and they say, yeah, it's legit, and they talk to the players about it. But we haven't had any of these cheap sideline shots, where you're getting 15 yards. I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't seen any punches being thrown, crap like that can cost you a game. The penalties we're getting are more play aggressive plays, where we're trying to make a play and maybe we get flagged for something. But overall, I'd like to see us reduce that number a little bit. I think that would be good. The other thing I'd like to see us do, and I didn't write down the figure, is I don't like seeing teams return kickoffs. I want to see our kickoffs go all the way into the end zone where it's a touchback. Most of these guys now, if they're pretty good, they're taking the ball maybe a yard or two deep in the end zone, and they're bringing it out. One time, the Wake Forest guy took it at his own 2-yard line and just took a touchback. I was shocked, and they were down a lot of points. That kickoff return play is a dynamic play. Why the hell the guy wouldn't try to return it is beyond me. But on kickoffs, Deuce Spann has found his niche for this team. Deuce Spann now has become very confident, and I think he's got the green light. If you're on the goal line, maybe 1 yard back in the goal, or certainly forward of that, if you feel it, you see it, go for it. He's got enough speed to get to that 20-yard marker, if nothing else. And he's got more speed. He almost broke one on Saturday. So he's doing a great job. Keon Coleman has cemented the punt return. He's catching every ball, which is really, really good. So we're doing really good on our special teams. One other thing, Fitz did miss a makeable field goal. He hit the upright. He got a doink, and that was the first miss of the year. That he had. So he's doing very well. He shouldn't allow that to affect him at all. It was very close. Just go and do what you do, Fitz. Just keep kicking the ball.
Yeah, and to your point on Spann, I think you said it. He's playing. It feels like he's playing with confidence. Since he got that touchdown, it feels like now he has the confidence that he's broken that line. It's like, now I know I can do it. I feel like now everyone I have in my hands, I can break that. It's like instilled that he needed just like that mental barrier to be broken, and now he feels like he is that dynamic player because he is that dynamic player. So it's great to see him playing with confidence back there, and he feels like every time that the ball's in the stands, he can break one, because it's true. He's that type of, that speed is killer on the field, and it's great to see him playing with confidence. And to your point, Keon's hands aren't dropping that football. So he is, once again, we were able to pray. That was some of our concerns, coming into the season with losing Micah Pittman, who was just reliable at catching the football. Keon's been able to take that and obviously do a lot more on both sides, on the offensive side. But he's taking that role on, and he stayed injury-free, which is good.
I thought, too, our third down efficiency, we were 7 of 14 at 50%, which is not a bad average, nationally. Nationally, that's not too bad. And I think it exceeded what our national average was coming into the game. So I was happy to see that in that regard. I thought our rushing at 126 yards could have been a little bit better, but I was very impressed with the opening game plan when we came out throwing the ball. And I think Keon had 3 of the first 4 balls that were thrown out there. He was targeted the first 4 times, I think. No Johnny Wilson in the game. Yep. I like that decision. Keep Johnny out. Depending on his injury, if he can get back in a little bit this week, just to get him on the field, just to get on the field in competition, even if you don't target Johnny Wilson. Let him run a few patterns, let him get into play, because the next week, November the 11th, you're playing Miami. You need both those guys out there. So I like the way we're nursing these guys along and being smart in that regard.
Absolutely. And it feels like, to your point, we ran for 4.2 yards per carry.
Yeah.
It's a good average. It's not bad, but it's not. I think what people are saying is like Benson's not having the 150 yard games like he did late last season, right? But he's still, statistically wise, I still think on track for the yardage he had last year. So it's not like he's taking this whole step backwards. I do feel like the last few games he's been running harder. When he is getting those extra yards that we maybe didn't feel like he was getting earlier in the season. But when the ball's in his hand, like we saw, receiving the ball this year, I think it's been a lot more dangerous. You saw it in the screenplay. That screenplay call was just that's a great. They set Wake Forest up totally. They bid on it. And then what I've seen differently in Trey Benson this year, it feels like he's finishing runs better, especially long runs. Last year, I wasn't sure if he had the kind of breakaway speed or the finishing speed.
Oh, he's got the breakaway.
But this year is finishing runs strong, especially on that screen pass. But he take that 80 plus or
that was
yeah. It was a great play call.
Great play. And let's say this about Benson. Now that he's put that on tape as well as being a receiver, okay, when he gets through a hole, he is gone.
Yeah.
This guy is a sprinter deluxe. He's built like a bull, and now he has shown he can catch the ball. You don't think the Sunday teams look at that? The Sunday teams want a back. Cam Akers could catch the ball, okay? If you're a one-dimensional back, you have a hard time making it on Sunday. Trey Benson is now showing I can do all of that, and I can run over people. And I'll be honest, I still put a little bit of the blame on our offensive line. I think it's an average, maybe an average plus offensive line that has slowed him down a little bit. What do you think of Lawrence Toafili? Only had one carry. Do you think he's been hurt, or what? What's the deal on that?
I think it's just game plan. Once again,
one carry for him? Little unusual.
But once again, it didn't feel like they were trying to force feed the running game this weekend. I
think maybe they didn't want to get him hurt too.
No, I don't think that's playing into consideration. But he was on the field. It wasn't like he was on the field. His snap count, he was 25. He was 25 snaps on the field. Benson was 29.
One carry seemed a little unusual to me. That's all. I look for the abnormalities at times.
But once again, Trey only had 10. And then, but I think it's the rotational thing. Once again, no back on this team's going to have 20, 25 carries again.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was like, okay, let's go Kazai or Rodney. And then by the game was over.
Rodney Hill looked good.
The game was over at halftime. So, if this game goes deeper, maybe Toafili gets more actual carries. Maybe he gets more balls in his hand. But I think it just didn't set up like that. When you can go 4 deep on running backs. There's just going to be some weeks where Toa doesn't get the ball or Rodney doesn't get the ball. It was good to see, Keziah get more touches than before, because once again, it looks like sometimes these guys disappear, but it's just a matter of depth and a matter of what the game plan is or what the defense is giving you. And honestly, what time the game's over at, because the game was honestly over at halftime. And then it was kind of just like, what are we going to do here?
Let's play it out. Let's play it out. Exactly. The other thing, Keon Coleman had 2 touchdowns, right? 2 touchdown receptions.
Yep.
Yeah, the TV announcers were making a big deal starting out the game. Him against this all Mr. D-back. They call him the walking seatbelt. The walking seatbelt Carson. Last name Carson, the defense back. He played solo on an island the whole game against Coleman, and Coleman lit him up.
And once again,
I'm not saying the guy's a bad player, but Keon Coleman looks like a pro playing in college right now. He is built like a pro. He plays like a pro. He's not, I think one time he caught a touchdown. Maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. He just kind of handed the ball to the ref. He's not showy. He's going like, I've done this before. It's not my first time. This guy is a Sunday player. and it's unfortunate we're only going to see him in a Florida State uniform for one season.
I know. That's what I love about him is that he just handles everything. He's just calm.
He's going to work. He's going to work.
I mean,
this is work. Look at this. Yeah, that was Carson. He ditched back there, and he just stiff arms this guy. It looks like he's a little league player.
It's just in the open field.
Watch this. This is Carson. Just bad angle, bad tackle. This guy just stiff arms a classic. He walks into the end zone, and he's just a pro. He's a pro, and he looks like a pro. The other guy that's a silent guy who will be back next year, in my opinion, is Morlock. This guy's hands.
He's got soft hands.
He's got great soft hands. I love it when they throw him the ball. He is going to be a huge asset to this team next season. Season.
I agree with that.
And he's a huge asset now.
I think some of the negatives against him, what I've seen or kind of heard, is that some of his blocking may not be up to the level especially coming from a D3. That's where it needs to improve. But I think that's going to come along. But you can't teach a guy to catch. You can't teach a tight end to catch. And I think he's made some good plays so far that, like you said, he'll be an asset in this offense. And as we know, Norvell, if he can find a good tight end, just like on a play like this, he finds ways to get open, and he bails Jordan Travis out here and makes a great grab on the run, which and he'll be here another year. This kid's not going to the NFL.
He's not going anywhere.
So if you get him or Keaston back, you're
gonna have, and Kentron. He missed the ball. He dropped the ball, but he also made a good catch. I made a note on Kentron made a good ball. I mean, Kentron has this. He has this Johnny Wilson type potential. Okay, I'm not going to say a Keon Coleman type potential, but he's got a Johnny Wilson potential. And I think he's going to make a big contribution in games this year as well, more next year. It's his position to lose next year. He is going to be the starter, in my opinion. So, he looked really good as well. But, this game was over at halftime. You're exactly right. The two quarterbacks for Clemson were ineffective. Their offensive line was not very good. And Florida State teed off against them and had a very good field day.
Yeah. And the thing that stood out to me, because I've been critical on this, and I want to give people praise after I've been critical of them, I thought this was Jordan Travis, one of his better passing games in terms of locating the deep ball. I've been very critical of him in terms of, I think in a lot of games this season, he's been overthrowing balls or just not being able to connect on a deep ball consistently enough, where I think some of these games could have been over a lot sooner, or they could have been blowouts even bigger if he connects on it. But I thought this game, he was on the money on many of these deep balls. I think one of them, here's an example of one. He hits Jaheim Bell, and this is the play I love. He hits Jaheim Bell on this ball. I'll bring it up here. And I right down the seam there. Jaheim Bell on the money, on the linebacker. He exploits that matchup so perfectly with this ball. It's if he can do that consistently, I mean that's how you make money in the NFL, right? By exploiting that one-on-one matchup with an athletic tight end like Jaheim. That's such a great ball by him. I love seeing that.
This whole rest of the season is very interesting because this team has so many offensive weapons, and if I say this, and I'm putting pressure on them, and I've been doing it all season. This offensive line now holds the key to how far this team goes. Okay, this offensive line holds the key. They have to play at a higher level in these final games we're facing because Jordan, if he can look at 3 different receivers, he's going to find a guy. These guys are going to be open and they can catch the damn ball if they give him the time. Okay? Great play by Morlock. Great play by Morlock.
But a great throw.
But you understand my point? Do you agree with me that the offensive line is the key to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if he can make throws like that consistently, you have this. That's how the offense fully unlocks. If he is able to sit in that pocket, sit in the pocket and deliver a ball like that over the shoulder consistently,
But
sky's the
KB,
limit.
I also like that we were playing the short passing game as well at times.
Yeah.
We're doing the little flares to the back. We're doing little crossovers. I like that because those plays are there. Take the short ones as well. Don't show that one. That's my point about the offensive line.
No, that's not on the
Okay.
offensive line.
Okay. Now, I did have a little concern in the first quarter. The first drive, we go right down and we make a great play and a touchdown. Period. Now, wait a minute.
No. I don't think it was a great play by Jordan. It was not a well executed.
Okay, I'm just saying.
And then he makes a play of it.
The first possession. The first overall possession, we get a touchdown. The second possession, we punt 3 and out or whatever. We have a punt. Third possession, we have to punt the ball away. Fourth possession, we did end up with a 46-yard field goal. I thought Jordan was a little bit off, or the receivers were off. I'm not going to blame Jordan all the time. There was some, because I saw Jordan moving his hands to receivers when we missed on a third. There was some inefficiency there for the offense there right after that first drive. That concerned me a little bit, but then we caught fire and we took it the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
No, they started a little bit slow, and you could say, well, 10 points isn't slow, but like you said, it's more about those sustained drives and not going 3 and out or 3 and out. And
right.
I think with this offense, and some of it, like you said, comes on the offensive line. I don't know, and I think this has been a constant, is that somehow defensive lines only rushing 3 are getting to Jordan.
They're getting there.
That's not acceptable. When a team rushes 3 defenders, they should not get to the quarterback. And I think you saw that a little bit last week on the second half, or going into the second half, when basically Syracuse, or maybe it was Duke, who was playing prevent, was able to get to Jordan Travis 3 straight times when we were trying to get some points at the end of the half. I think it was against Duke, maybe. And then this week, a 3-man rush on Wake was somehow able to generate pressure. And I don't know if it's just like the shift.
I don't think they respect.
Block who.
I don't think that. I don't think teams, when they game plan us, give total respect to this offensive line. I think they see it as
anything about respect. It's just block 3 men.
Of course, it's respect if you're only rushing 3 guys. If you think you can get there.
No, I don't think that's what Wake Forest is thinking at all. I don't think they were like, oh, we're only going to send 3 men. We're going to get pressure. I think it's just they are playing the defense, but that defense should not be able to send 3 men and get pressure on the quarterback.
So why? What do you think is happening?
I don't know. Alex Atkins got to look at the tape and figure out why the hell is this happening too often than not. That's what has to happen. I don't know if it's they need to.
He has less of a task than Deion Sanders done on the offensive line. I'll tell you that shit. It's offensive linemen are the toughest guys to find. They're the toughest guys to find out there.
Yeah, you're not. That's not breaking news. That's not breaking news.
No, I know. I'm not trying to break any news. I'm just trying to tell you this team will go as far as this offensive line carries them the rest of the way. They cannot continue to give up these jailbreaks to get to your quarterback, because you do that, you're going to get your quarterback out of the game. And then we're going to say, oh. So they have to step up and start holding down people for 4 seconds.
Yep. And then one thing I do want to note, because we did see a little bit of a tape this weekend. Thankfully, I'm glad he got some airtime, because I do like to see when he's on the field and what he's got. I thought the ball he delivered was awesome. That guy's got a rocket of an arm, and I keep forgetting that, but he's got a
who?
He's got
Tate.
He look at the delivery on that ball over the middle.
Tate's got a gun. He's got a gun. He just doesn't have the experiences yet.
You can't.
I didn't say it.
I'm just talking about what I'm seeing on the field. That's a rope over the middle. The guy, you could see the guy to double clutch it because it was going so fast onto his hands. That's a great. He looks a lot more comfortable. I know it's the end of the game, but he looks comfortable operating the offense. And we saw it in the Louisville game. Look at him in the pocket. That guy was coming right off the edge quickly against a young offensive lineman. Tate didn't rush. He used his athleticism. He
managed the game. Managed the game.
That's what
the game.
That's what I'm seeing from Tate. Last year, the year before, we saw a kind of a hectic, guy, but he seems comfortable. He seems comfortable with it, and that's what I wanted to see. And that's
he's the guy. He's the guy starting out next year. It's his job to lose.
I don't think that necessarily.
I do. I think it's his job to lose next year. The other impressive thing: no fumbles and no interceptions.
Yep.
No turnovers. That's a big deal especially when you have high penalties, which we did over 100 yards. No interceptions, no fumbles. Keep it clean. Keep it clean. That's a big deal.
The running backs have done a great job of not dropping the football. When they've had the ball, Trey and them have done a great job of not letting the ball loose on the ground. And Jordan, there's some games where you're like, well, why did he throw it there? But once again, and that's one thing I think sometimes he can clean up. You saw it on that clip before where he took the sack. Instead of throwing the ball away, he took the sack and he kind of tried to throw it away at the last minute.
I know.
Those are the types he always wants to make a big play, and I love that about him. He always wants to move the football. He always wants to make a play. But those things against better teams are boom or bust. Maybe he gets out of that and he saves the day. But some of those things we saw against Duke, where he threw the interception for the pick six, maybe you can't pull that off against a Miami who has.
There's no reason for Jordan. There is no reason for Jordan, given the weapons he has on offense, to have to force balls into coverages. Okay, he got away with one early in the game against Wake. Yeah, they almost picked that pass off.
I think that was on the receiver, though.
I don't care. I don't know who it was on. I don't have the headphone on. I'm not down there. But he got away with one. Now, my last thought on for me tonight is this: what the hell is this big mouth? The guy Pat McAfee leaves FSU out of the Final Four. He was on the College Game Day. He did.
He watches 8 hours of college football the entire
I know. I don't give a shit, but he speaks like he's an expert. Florida State doesn't deserve to be in there. He thinks their schedule is not that good. Blah blah blah. And I hope Florida State fans react to that. If you want to react to something, react to that nonsense. This guy's just a clown trying to make money. And he was crapping all over Florida State, and I didn't take it nicely.
He's
and I've shout out to you, McAfee. Come on this show and explain what you're saying about Florida State not deserving to be in there. Come on, anytime.
No, but once again, he's the guy that he knows what his job is. It's to generate conversation, generate clicks, and that's what
there's a lot of media guys out there just to generate clicks. Okay, and we know who they are.
Richardson said, the Trouts were to go down for whatever reason, I have full confidence in Tate to be able to take over and lead us to victory. And I would say, once again, it's hard to say because we only see him in one game action.
Yeah,
he did lead us back to victory. He did lead us back to victory in that Louisville game, which was a big game last year.
What's interesting is Louisville is now tracking for a collision course with Virginia Tech for second place in the ACC, and the winner of that game could likely, since UNC lost, face Florida State.
But to your point, back to the question, is that I think it's as long as you have somebody capable of reading the defense and throwing the ball with these weapons, there'll be a lot softer of a pillow to fall on than, say, 2 or 3 years ago when it was more of a mess. But I don't even want to play the scenario out because I love Travis, and I think he's coming off the best game of his season last week. Again, Wake Forest, like I said, I think last week was one of his best passing games of his career in terms of placement, throwing the deep ball and making decisions. I hope he just continues to build off of this into Pitt, into Miami, and then in Florida and moving forward. So, but yeah, I hope we don't have to play out that scenario.
The best thing that Tate can do, the best thing that this team can do, the best thing that the coaches can do is make sure every player that's not in the game is mentally prepared to go into the game and to take over the game. And for quarterbacks, that's very important that they're not over there BSing with their friends, that they're locked in because at any time they could go into the game. And I think Tate maybe is ready for that because he's going to get opportunities sooner or later.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. So once again, I would grade Florida State's performance this past weekend as an A plus. I don't see anything. Once again, defense is playing its butt off. They're playing at a very great to elite level at this moment. And once again, the offense is starting to click more and more each week. We know what Keon can do. Once you get Johnny Wilson back, that brings back that next dimension of it. It's just who's that third receiver? Who's going to be that third? We were missing Hakeem, Destin, and the third player that's missing out of my mind. But I mean, you were down some guys this weekend. Like, I didn't think it was as big of an impact as the commentators are trying to make it feel, because you have so many weapons on this team. But who's going to be that slot guy? Who's going to be that third receiver that kind of breaks open? I think it's Jaheim. It's Morlock. It's going to be those tight ends, obviously. But
maybe
I'd love
Ja'Kai.
to see.
Maybe Ja'Kai.
Yeah, I wanted him to break that touchdown so much, and it was an arm tackle.
He's got good hands.
Yeah, and Jordan caught him on that pass, a great pass over the middle, and Ja'Kai caught it. I was hoping he would break that, because I want him to break that mental wall now and get his first touchdown after the injury. So I think Ja'Kai, once again, I think you're right. He could start making some plays down the stretch here, and I'm hoping for it. But I also want Destin to get in too. So, yeah, so we'll move on to Pittsburgh. We'll have a preview show on Thursday for that, and we'll move forward there. To wrap up, then, we want to talk about the preview show. So we have the college football playoff ranking show that's on Tuesday.
Yeah,
and obviously
tomorrow.
we want to get your thoughts on that before we close down for tonight's show. So, like you said, Pat McAfee was talking junk that Florida State should be in the top 4. He said Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma had struggled the week before UCF, and now they lost, so he looks dumb. And you look at teams, the teams in front of Florida State. You have Ohio State, you have Georgia, and then you have can't remember. But you have Ohio State, you have Georgia, and you got, I think Florida State obviously is going to be in the top 4. I can see them as number 3 at this moment. I think with Ohio State and Florida State, it's tough. Michigan, you obviously are going to play 1 or 2. Michigan hasn't played anybody. That's the issue. People are saying they look like the most complete team because they're blowing out teams by 40, but they're also playing they have probably one of the worst strengths of schedules of the top 4 teams. And so that's where I didn't understand what Pat McAfee was saying, because he's like, Florida State barely got by Boston College. They barely, they haven't played anybody. I'm like, have you looked at Michigan's schedule? They literally haven't played anybody yet, and they'll play one team the entire season.
Well, one of them is going to lose. Michigan or Ohio State. One of the two is going to get a loss. It will depend on how bad that loss is.
Yeah.
Florida State is going to be in the top 4 when this ranking comes out tomorrow. They're going to be in the top 4. Okay, there's no doubt about that. And they control their own destiny. But against Pittsburgh, you can't squeak by. Okay, you've got to beat the spread. And you've got to dominate like you've done the last 2 weeks. Dominate.
Yep.
That's the word. Dominate.
And I think they are. Their game plan. Last weekend against Wake, they were passing all the way through the fourth quarter. I think they know what they need to do, and they're going to go out and dominate all 4 quarters.
And you've got a good Washington Husky team out there at 5 and Oregon at 6, a 1-loss team. People love those teams out there. So I think Florida State is not getting the big respect that they should, so we can't slip up. Slipping up in any way, even if you're winning and it's not looking good, could hurt you in the chase.
Where do you see Florida State then tomorrow?
4. I see them at 4.
You see them at 4?
Yep.
Okay. You don't see them jumping Ohio State or...
No. At best, 3. At worst, 4.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't. If for some reason Washington jumps, I don't know how. Yeah, Washington's been struggling the last couple of weeks. I think they're sort of in that scenario with Oklahoma right now. They have an elite quarterback. He's Penix is I think probably win the Heisman. He is, but outside of that, they have been sort of teetering on the edge of getting almost Oklahoma, and. Yeah, I would agree.
I think we've done enough. I think we've done enough. We beat LSU, a good LSU. We beat Clemson on a. People say, well, they're having a bad year. We still beat them. You have to go through Clemson to win the ACC. We've gone through Clemson. We beat LSU, and we've continued to win. And now we're looking dominant.
Yeah, that's
the key word. Are you playing in a dominant fashion? You get out there, you kick ass. Okay, you're not satisfied. Okay, if you're up 34-10 at halftime, you can't be satisfied. Now, there is a point you start getting players out, but your other players have to go in there and perform. Okay, you're out there to get points. You're not there to kill time. You're out there to get points. Period. And if you're not going to do that, you're not on the field. Okay, this is a chase of about 6 to 7 teams to get into those Final Four. Next year, we'll be talking about 12. That's a different
State to be 3. I'm really interested to see where they place Michigan. If Michigan, once again, see 2 in the AP poll, but I think they're getting a lot of box score and analysis. People see how much they're blowing people out, but once again, they haven't played anybody. So I'm interested to see where they place Michigan. Florida State obviously is going to be in the top 4, but it'll be interesting to see if they place Michigan on 2 or 3 or 4. So I think Michigan could slide between 2 or 4. Very much.
It's obvious to us that Florida State should be no worse than 4, but could we see the board and they put Washington in there? They could.
I don't.
They could. We don't know this committee.
If they do that,
I don't even know who's
in the top 4. If they do that, then Michigan shouldn't be in the top 4 either. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. But Bureau says there's an argument to be on what the committee values for any position 1 to 4. I have said 3, but there's no way we're any lower than 4. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would agree with that. But it'll be interesting. Once again, you never know how this committee is going to rank people what they value the most, as B. Riley said. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I know we're going to finish this out right now, but I think in the last 2 games, we have accomplished our goals. Okay, you have to have goals beyond winning. Winning is an automatic. It's how we win. That's the key. You can't look sloppy anymore. You can't have multiple turnovers and skim by these remaining opponents whose records really aren't that great, okay? Even though the biggest problem is you got 2 in-state rivalry games coming up and an ACC championship game as 3 tough games there. Do not rule out Miami or Florida in giving you tough games, okay? They're gonna come in and give tough games.
Yeah, Team Murray says got to beat Miami and UF by 17 plus because Washington plays 3 ranked teams to end the season.
Okay, I agree with Mr. Murray there that you can't. I don't know if you just beat Miami or Florida in overtime or you beat them by 3 points. That could leave you out of the party. That could leave you without a chair, and that would be sad. That would be sad because this team is. It could happen.
But that's assuming Washington beats all those teams too.
Well, that's true.
If Washington loses, then they're, once again, I think there's going to be some turmoil.
Well, let's not worry about everybody else. We need to understand what our goals are.
But you're talking about blowing out teams. First of all, you have to beat the team.
I didn't say blow out. I said beating the spread. Beating the spread is kind of what the experts. The guys who set the spread, these gamblers, they're kind of experts in the business. Okay, they look at that's their damn job. So if you're not beating that spread, there are questions. Why not? Why didn't you? So let's not understate that. It's important.
Yeah. So if the Oklahoma losing, there's no chance for 5 undefeated conference champions. Winning, we're in. We don't have to have style points.
Oklahoma's not even a question.
But he said, with their losing, there won't be 5 undefeated conference champions. So if we win out, essentially, right, and win the conference championship, then there would be no undefeated. There won't be more than 5 undefeated. So if we're undefeated, we should be in because they're not going to take a one-loss team over an undefeated Florida
State. If there's 5, though, there's only 4 chairs.
There can't be.
There's 4 chairs.
But there can't be any more than 5 undefeated teams.
Well, let's just. I just want to take care of our business. I don't want to get into no. I don't. And you know what? It's a shame that JMU can't even get recognized. And you know what? The TV announcers. I watched some of that game. The TV announcers even said they don't understand the NCAA on this one. It makes no sense. The statistics for JMU this season, maybe it was last season or the next, I don't even know. The 2 seasons of transition don't even count. They don't even count.
They do the rules.
Listen, it's stupid. It makes absolutely no sense. And NCAA, what the hell is the matter with you?
I don't know why you're even asking that question.
Well, it's stupid. It's stupid. It's penalizing a team who's trying to upgrade their program. That's the bottom line. Makes no sense.
All right. And someone goes, what's the spread for the pick game? I think right now in DraftKings, it's at 21.5 for Florida State.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But come by on Thursday. We'll have that preview show. So drop by with your questions, comments for that show. We thank you all for coming by.
I'll be in the road studio. The road studio.
But we'll see what Kennedy says tomorrow. So yeah, tweet at us, let us know your thoughts, and bring those comments on Thursday when we discuss the playoff rankings and where we landed. Hopefully in a good spot.
Hey,
hopefully
and a
hopefully
big shout out to all our viewers, followers here. We try to get your comments up, and you guys are great. We appreciate you joining us. We do this for you guys. We do it for ourselves. We're having fun with it, and that's what we're here for. So we appreciate you guys being here. Hit that like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you would. We don't ask that a lot, and we appreciate you guys a lot.
Absolutely. Gonna run to dinner. Hope you all are too. Have a great Monday. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on Thursday. Have a great one, y'all. Take care. Speak soon.
Bye-bye.